because of a pardon granted to him late Friday night. John Cohn, ABC News contributor and former acting Secretary for Intelligence at Department of Homeland Security from Washington. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Nice to be with you again.
How surprised are you that this came down in the way it did come down?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not surprised based on what we've seen present in the political environment over the last year in this country. I am, as somebody who has spent enforcement and Homeland Security, very disappointed. I mean, you had the Justice Department and separately a federal court tell Sheriff Joe Arpaio and the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office that they had been behaving illegally in an unconstitutional manner. They were told to stop. They refused to stop, and the sheriff was held in contempt. That's how the system's supposed to work. So I think the president's sending a very bad message, quite frankly, to law enforcement across the country, where he's basically saying you can behave in an unconstitutional manner and you won't suffer the repercussions.
Not only that, but Joe Arpaio has never really admitted to any wrongdoing.
No, he hasn't, and worse than that, he has tried to hide what he is doing from the Justice Department and from federal courts. He has sought to get revenge against people who were whistleblowers against his department or who reported problems. But the facts are well documented. The Justice Department began their investigation back in 2008 during the Bush administration. They documented a systemic level of unconstitutional behavior by the police department in how they made stops out in the field and how they detained people. They documented excessive force. They documented that people were being treated unfairly and illegally. And that's even before the class action suit. So the facts here are very clear that under his watch, this sheriff's office was not behaving in a legal manner and consistent with best practices in law enforcement.
I've also heard that he cost Maricopa County, $100 million?
Yes, because of the actions of the department, both in how they handled their so-called immigration enforcement and in actions taken by the department against people who were trying to bring an end to it, the county was subject to multiple lawsuits. They lost in virtually every case, and that cost the taxpayers millions and millions of dollars.
Was it all immigrants, or was it other groups besides just immigrants that he did not uphold their constitutional rights?
Well, his actions affected people who were U.S. citizens as well. Part of what his people were doing is making traffic stops on people who looked like they might be Hispanic. And in those stops, people who were U.S. citizens got caught up in these types of illegal detentions. Also, in the way that he treated people who were detained in his jails. That applied to both immigrants and non-immigrants, but it was very brutal conditions. He referred to it himself as his jail as being a concentration camp.
Yeah, and he was reelected many, many times, but this last election, the voters voted him out.
That's exactly right. I mean, part of his behavior was fueled by the political benefit that came from being viewed as being hard on crime and hard on immigration. So it played well politically. But in this last election in 2016, the voters of Maricopa County had enough, and they voted him out of office by a significant margin.
Yeah, which is interesting because they voted in favor of Donald Trump, but very much against Joe Arpaio.
Well, look, this isn't really a Democrat or Republican issue. I mean, we can be strong in our enforcement of laws, and that includes enforcement of our immigration laws. But law enforcement has to behave in a constitutional and fair manner. Police can't just go running off rogue and apply the law differently to different people. That's just not how our system works.
Yeah.
And I think in some respects, that's what the people of Maricopa County, that's the message they were sending in this last election.
Is Joe Arpaio facing any other criminal action?
Well, interestingly, if you read the pardon doesn't just, and this is kind of inconsistent with what we've been hearing from administration officials, it doesn't just apply to the contempt citation or the contempt conviction. It also applies to any offenses that may arise relevant to this class action suit. So it seems that the president has pretty much given him a get-out-of-jail card.
So they gave him anything in the past and anything in the future.
Exactly.
John Cohn, ABC News contributor, former acting Undersecretary for Intelligence at DHS. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
You got it.